Let's make your Viking River Cruise as smooth as the waterways you'll explore. Here are some of the essential things to know before you go.
Okay, everyone, thank you for joining us for this Viking presentation. We're going to teach you how some tips from our Viking expert, Darren Dolan, about preparing for your river cruise, what to expect, any little tips we can bring to the table here. So here he is, Darren Dolan. Take it away, please.
Hey Ted, good day to you. I hope all is well. Thanks again for giving me this opportunity to get in front of you and your wonderful clients. And what I love, you always come up with some really unique topics to discuss. So here's one that's definitely beneficial and one that I hope information I'm going to be providing today will be helpful to those clients who are either booked or will be booking through you. So we've called it Before You Go. All right. So it's so typical of Viking and your client, your clients out there and people listening that you probably well have made this reservation well in advance, right? If you think we're in 2025 right now, but 2028 is already open and selling, that's a long time off. So there's a lot of time from your reservation to actually coming to join us on the cruise. So Viking does a tremendous job at keeping you interested, keep reaching out, contacting you, providing you content and information on your upcoming journey. I too am cruising. I'll be going in about 2 weeks time for a Christmas market cruise, just as a regular client. And I've also been receiving a lot of updates and a lot of information on Christmas markets and recipes and such like that. So it's something we really do install and it helps you, it keeps you interested in your upcoming cruise. So I just said cruise, maybe I should be saying experience, because one thing at Viking, and we see so much and a huge percentage of our clients are participating in our pre and post packages. Absolutely worthwhile. When you look at what we can add on to just your cruise, with this pre and post packages, of course, many of you will be already booking into the Viking Air program. Then, of course, we have insurances, whether you're purchasing that insurance through Viking or through Ted and one of his advisors, absolutely must. It's a must, ladies and gentlemen. Again, if you're not purchasing Viking insurance, that's perfectly fine, but please ensure that you are purchasing insurance for your upcoming travel. And there's pre and post packages here, allowing us to really put everything under one umbrella through the air, through the pre and post packages. Of course, if you're using a Viking pre and post package and you're booking our air, that all gets aligned accordingly. The beauty of it is we are there for you. You are booking through Viking. We are responsible. If air becomes an issue or delays and such like that, we will be taking care of you on your way. And why are pre and post packages so important? Well, I always see the benefit of those basically is that it's getting there ahead of time. If we look at the pre-programs, right? Jet lag, air delays, luggage, all these things can happen in this world of travel that we live in today. And I just see the pre and post package, or specifically the pre-package, being a great tool to combat that, and allowing you, particularly if you look at our programs, they're normally 2 to 3 nights. It allows you to get over that jet lag. If there have been any delays, if there hasn't been a luggage challenge, it adds a kind of a safety buffer in it as well. Of course, additional to that, it's allowing us to discover places that may not necessarily be close to those navigable rivers. Many of our pre and post packages may be out of the cities from which we are sailing from or to. An example here, of course, if we were look at the Rhone program down in Lyon, we have this French Riviera 3-night. Perfect. You're getting to see the Mediterranean, you're getting to see the Provence region, and then we will make our way then to Avignon. to cruise to Lyon, for example. And of course, it makes sense that the major cities, the major draw cards in this example, Paris, of course, would be a wonderful way to end your journey if you were heading from south to north and having a wonderful 3-night package in Paris. All chances are that you'll be flying in or out of Paris anyway. So another great benefit to the pre and post packages is getting to meet fellow travelers. As I said, a huge percentage of our guests are partaking in pre and post. So getting to the hotels, having that Viking representation with our wonderful red tablecloths and the red Viking t-shirts, and finding guests who are like-minded, such as yourselves, enjoying the pre-journey. Great way to get things going and meet people before you actually get on your ship. So pre and post, I always highly recommend partaking.
And Darren, before we leave that thought, this is Ted speaking, of course.
Yes.
You see these online, right? With the itinerary.
Actually, I'll go back. Absolutely, you're 100% correct.
You can assume that these will always be available. You don't have to book them right away, right?
Some of them, we have some that are quite sought after. I always think of Lake Como, for example, if we're doing a Rhine, where we have limited, room blocks, as you would. In a major city such as Paris, we pretty much got substantial hotel space booked, but there are some that will have limited availability. I'm just bringing up Como because that's one I get a lot of requests about the hotels booked out. So I always like to say, it really does benefit to book it out earlier. Of course, pricing for pre and post packages, that's why we don't see the pricing when we look on the website, on the itineraries. It may say from, because pricing obviously is seasonal. So
you can't assume that you'll get. It's probably better to book it in advance. And you pay for the final payment, right?
Correct. It all gets bulked into your cruise fare, together with your air, together with your cruise, and any pre and post packages.
But what if you change your mind? What if you cancel it? You lost your money, or how does that work? I'm just asking because this is a scenario I go through time after time. Try to explain to people.
Absolutely.
You booked it. Maybe you don't want to do it anymore. And then what? What can you do?
So it falls within the cancellation policy. So when we get to that 120 days out, that's pretty much that time where from that time on in, we are looking at facing penalties. So, it's very important to say, okay, now with that, 4 months out, am I fully dedicated to this? Because you got to consider as well, in many cases, I mentioned earlier, air might have been purchased as a component as well. And of course, if you're canceling your pre and post, that has an effect on your air as well. Because of the custom air component of that is linked to your pre and post.
Okay, maybe things have changed, but from my experience, as long as you cancel before your air is ticketed, you seem to be able to get, even if it's sooner than later, you do seem to be able to get your money back. That's my experience.
And again, ticketing is happening further out as well than it always used to be. So I always tell people to, don't take it for granted. Put them on there at time of booking, actually, and then absolutely,
in my experience, you're not going to be messed up unless you wait till last minute.
Wait till you wait, and then it's not available, right? At least we can.
And you can't get it.
Yeah, absolutely. With demand that it is, and we only have a finite amount of hotels and hotel rooms, which is going back to my point earlier. Get it and commit to it. You're not going to be penalized from booking it until you want to cancel it outside the penalty. Correct. It's good. So,
right.
This definition, this one of our sayings that we have, is the thinking person's cruise. And for many of you listening today, is you're all going to be traveling together as like-minded people. We look at that 55 plus market, right? Many of you are fortunate to being retired or time and money to be able to spend and enjoy these wonderful experiences with Viking. But it's amazing when we come together, curiosity. While we're like-minded, we also have these individual interests for which we are traveling. And I just love this, the camaraderie that we discover on board. I just spoke about the pre and post and meeting fellow travelers ahead of your cruise portion. Well, the same is very true when we actually get on board. Now, I know we're talking about before, and you'll see point 2 here is before you travel. It's planning, anticipating. As I mentioned earlier, my very own cruise is coming up in 2 weeks, and just this last weekend, my wife and I kind of realized, oh wow, that's in 2 weeks' time, and we started doing some planning. We started, looking at highlights. We started looking at restaurants and such like that. So it really is wonderful, to be able to pre-plan. And as I mentioned earlier, Viking does a wonderful job in staying in contact and providing you interest aspects from filmographies to recommended books of the regions, to historic facts, to recipes and such like that. These are all the things you're receiving well in advance of cruising. And of course, the activities both on and off the ship. And we're going to look at those a little closer coming up here. I mentioned, reasons. My personal favorite, and Ted will attest to this from previous presentations we've done, my passion is food and wines of the world. And here, when you come to River Cruise with Viking, you're going to be immersed in them. So when we look at the culinary aspect, I wanted to touch on a few points here. Number one, to make sure that we are aware of any allergies, that we are aware of any, restrictions, that we are aware of any alternate dining lifestyle that we see a lot today. It's the earlier we know about this, and the marks are made in the reservation, and those are forwarded to the ship, absolutely the best. I have just returned from Portugal 2 weeks ago, and on my journey in Portugal, within our group, we had a lady who was, was gluten-free, and the husband could not thank us enough for the amount of, attention that she received from the Metro D to ensure that each and every day, whether she'd ordered a hamburger, that was a gluten-free hamburger, or that she was given gluten-free breads. It's just remarkable. So make sure that we know. And if we know ahead of time before you go, it just only enhances the probabilities of us ensuring to take care of you from allergies to culinary lifestyle. So very important. Another point, I think, and I just made this point myself, culinary is one of the reasons why many people travel. And we go to certain places in anticipation of the foods of that region. So do that research. If there is a favorite restaurant, again, I'm just going to use my own example because it's fresh in my mind. I know that I'm going to Vienna, and I know that my favorite schnitzel in Vienna is at the Fiegelmühle. I've made reservations because I know we're going to be there for, just not a long length of time. I've made my reservations at the Fiegelmühle already. Also, when we start looking at the destination dining, and you are of interest, and you're cruising next year or months from now, look the foods up. Look up the foods of the region. The chances are really high that when you come on board, when you see our regional menu options that the chefs prepare each and every single night, there might be that little item there that you've read about, that you know about, and you've always been intrigued. And the regional menus on board allow you to taste and to test without any commitment, right? It may very well be that you have this wonderful test and you say, oh my gosh, that was absolutely stunning. I had no idea. Well, guess what? The next day you're in town, you're in one of the cities. They're notorious and famous for this specific dish you'd had the night before. Then you can go into that restaurant knowing full well what you're about to experience and what you're about to taste. So, again, many options and many reasons to be focused on the culinary aspect before you go. And the onboard enrichment, again, of course, as I mentioned, the cultural experiences go twofold. It goes from the onboard experience to the offshore and to the tours. This is Ted and I spoke previously, and while this is not exactly a before you go, this is definitely something to focus on and ensure that we are planned and prepared at the time of arrival on embarkation. Getting those dailies, having the weekly program, sitting down with your coffee, you've arrived, you have a coffee in the lounge, have that daily program. Know that we're going to do a cooking demonstration on Thursday. Know that we are going to be focusing on the specific region. Know that a local artisan is going to be coming in on Wednesday. There's a painting class on Thursday. All these things allow you to plan your week accordingly and to ensure that we don't miss out on some of these experiences. I just happened to be in the lounge the other week when I was in Portugal, and we have the cork lady. Would I have necessarily signed up to listen to the cork lady? Probably not in my interest. I just happened to be in the lounge with my laptop working, and I sat there in great interest, and I learned so much about cork from Portugal, its many uses, and it was really informative, so if you know that these things are going to be planned ahead for the week, make sure that we have that weekly planner in hand. Asterisk them off, set a reminder. You will be reminded each and every evening, but during the port talks, but always nice to be able to have your week planned ahead of time.
Cooking demonstrations.
Yes.
How do you plan for book that? How does that work?
You're right. Great thing. Great question there, Ted. So I'm going to go to, again, an example I know is going to be coming up next week, but in 2 weeks when I travel. It's going to be the Apfelstrudel baking demonstration. So the baking demonstrations on our river ships take place up in the lounge, as most activities do. The chef sets up his tables right there on the dance floor by the Viking lounge. And the time is given at 10 a.m. and anybody interested would come up. Chef will be there. And of course, we always look for volunteers. Some are volunteered and some are really, anxious and they're excited to be a participant. So normally in this particular case, Apfelstrudel making, chef will have all the preparation of all the mise en place will be already done. Let's say we have 2 participants. Those participants come up, they get the Viking, their Viking aprons and their chef's hats, and the rest of the audience, of course, just watch this unfold. It usually results in just a lot of flour everywhere. It's very lighthearted, it's educational, but entertaining all at the same time. So, and the cooking demonstrations are really well attended, I must say. And again, they're always focused on the regions through which we are sailing. The shore experiences are a huge component of why guests sail with Viking. We've come a long way. We've come a remarkably long way. I will be now almost going to 15 years with Viking in next year, and what I've seen, the biggest steps that we've made is what we provide in the towns and cities that we're visiting to. The Viking way, it used to be very, very basic, the churches, the cathedrals, the museums, but we're going to go back to that thinking person's cruise tagline again, why people are traveling with us. And we've expanded on that so much over the last decade or so to where it's actually given a name, the Viking way. As you may or may not be aware, Viking provides a complimentary shore experience in every port that we visit. Or even though it's complimentary, please ensure that you sign up for that tour. Okay, so it lets us work on the planning for how many motor coaches or how many tour guides we may need. So when you go onto My Viking Journey, or you reach out to Ted or one of his advisors, let's get those on the books, and those are solid. We go the furthest distance possible to ensure that you can enjoy your complimentary shore experience, as well as then any optional, what we call an optional tour, or tours that fall within the Viking Way. Regrettably, sometimes based on distance and length of tour, this is not always possible. Let's say we're in Passau, for instance, and we have a day tour out to Salzburg. That tour is a 9-hour tour, so you are committed to that tour. So chances are you're going to miss your complimentary experience. So ensure that you sign up for the included, and make sure you spend enough time researching the optional tours. What we find sometimes is folks can maybe wait a little too long. These are all the benefits of booking well in advance. It allows you then to secure a stateroom. It then also allows you to go into your optional tours and pre-book those ahead of time. So it really is a benefit to you. Again, as I mentioned, a lot of these are themed, and the next slides are going to explain that a little better. They're themed to the personal likes and interests. What we actually see sometimes is a couple coming along with us, and the husband has his own interests, and the wife may have her interests, and they can go a separate way. They can go on separate tours for that day, and that happens quite a bit. So ensure that we are prepared. This is a real big one before you go. Again, the ability to watch insight videos. Again, that content that we're going to send you leading up to your tour is also very beneficial in making those choices. And then when we look at the Viking Way, I have an example here of just some of the European river cruise experiences. Again, we've broken those down to 3 interest points: the local life, the working world, and the one that we're so proud of is the privileged access. They are very self-defined. The next slide is going to give you a little bit more information how we define those and how we put them into the categories. And again, a word of advice, if I could. If there is a privileged access experience that you would like to partake in and sign up for, the further out the better, because in some cases these could be very limited. We're looking here at the Dom Cathedral, right? So the Cologne and the Rhine, from the roof of the Cologne's magnificent Gothic cathedral. We're not just going up to the top spire. We actually, and I actually did this one myself, it's limited to 12 guests. Because ultimately what we're going to do when we get to the top section, we take the regular guest elevator to the top, we exit that elevator, and we're actually going to go then into the elevators that the workers use. The workers are working on the restoration of the dome itself, and we are limited in amount of people, and we take this workers elevator. It's external. We're going up by the turret. We're going to see the gargoyles. We're seeing the buttresses, and this elevator takes you right to the very, very, very top of the peaks and of the spire of the Dom Cathedral. And for that reason, it's extremely limited. Just an example of how limited we can be. But again, the programs that we provide, the options, they are absolutely phenomenal. If you are of interest, when you look online at the daily, if you find the itinerary that you're interested in or maybe booked into, go into the day by day, click onto day 1. Actually, click onto day 2, because they're not normally tours on day 1. Click onto day 2, and there'll be a listing of the optional tours and some wonderful definitions that actually give you a better indicator of what those experiences are. And this is how we put into words, we put into graphics, and we use these icons to really help define what it is exactly what this tour is going to be. As you can see here, several excursion types we look on the left, from sightseeing, special interest, active, of course. Active is something where we've built up a lot of brand new programs where we're adding hiking, we're adding biking, we're adding kayaking for the more active guests, and these have been really well received. And scoring very high in our points. And then the activity level, as you will see here, is broken down into 4 categories, from easy, moderate, demanding, and also wheelchair. Now that's very interesting, because we want to take the slow walkers, those with canes or maybe wheelchairs, and put these folks together. When we talk about accessibility in Europe, not all cities and towns are very welcoming of that. So that's a good indicator to know that it will probably be an easy, wheelchair friendly, and that's an ideal excursion for those folks to sign up for. And what is included? What is the main features? Of course, the example that we have on here will be paella lunch. Of course, it goes without saying this falls under local life. A meal is included during this experience. It's part of the natural world, and participation in this particular instance would be moderate. So, we're not going hiking. The whole essence of this is to go see this particular paella being made. You'll see after dark. Really great indicator. I think all these icons really do help define exactly what it is that this excursion would require. And sometimes we'll look at it and maybe you say, oh, I wanted to go on this hike, but it's demanding, it's after dark, that's not for me. And I think it's good for us all to know those before we pre-book. And then quite unique, again, going back to assets that we make available to you. This is remarkable. This Viking TV really, came to birth basically during COVID, right? So what could we do? We can go out, we can see anybody, we went cruising, and our wonderful daughter of our chairman, Mr. Torsten Hagen's daughter, Karina, this was her inspiration. This was her doing, and absolutely remarkable, where Viking has its very own streaming TV channel, Viking.tv. And the whole essence of Viking.tv is to provide you more content, to provide you interest aspects, where we have special guests, where we do culinary experiences, where we focus on interests, photography. So you can see there that the themes that we would have, the arts and music on Wednesdays, and guest speaker on a Thursday, and it's museum Mondays. So again, and in many cases, the themes around these, and they're also obviously pre-recorded and held in a library as well. So if you are going on the Danube, you want to learn a bit more about the Danube, you can go through these topics, go through these recordings, and watch of interest. And again, it sparks interest, and it might bring something to light that you weren't aware of. It. Wow, I'm adding that to my list for my experience. So again, we do a great job in keeping you involved and looking forward to your upcoming cruise by providing all these wonderful assets and experiences. So while cruising is amazing, I always find the lead up also exciting. So, before you go, know and do as much research as you possibly can, and be prepared, plan accordingly, and it will ensure that you have a wonderful experience.
Thank you so much, Darren, and well said. We're going to cover a little bit more after this video, so stay tuned. One of the things I just want to stress again is planning far in advance as possible. What happens is, if you do that, your options are open, okay? And if you make major changes, or sometimes Viking makes it easy to book early. If you need to change something later or switch, they do allow it in most instances. The other point is especially on river cruises, there's not big ships like ocean ships. And the excursions are limited too, right? And the hotels. All these things are dependent on when you book. So, and Viking, I've been with you for decades, working with you, right? And you're always thinking, well, new ships, and how are they going to fill the ships, and things are becoming less and less available. But it just they just build and build and build, and the followers are they keep coming back, and they keep coming back for more, because Viking always delivers. Whatever the situation is, if sometimes you have high water levels, low water levels, air snafals, as oh my gosh, we've recently seen. But Viking is, they're geniuses at following everything and just keeping your vacation going, doing everything possible to make it happen.
Indeed.
And on top of that, if you work with somebody like me, I have insider information, with Viking, with Mr. Dolan and others, the people that work here with Ted and Shelley. We really do our best to stay informed on the latest specials. We're always aware of what's coming up. If you call in, we can say, well, why don't you take the cruise at this time? Or why don't you use, this credit card, you go get this discount, or and so forth. If you have special codes, we keep track of all of them. You may not know when you call in. So, we just want you to have the best possible opportunity to take a wonderful vacation. And there's so much more. We're even giving local airport limousine service, depending on the length of the cruise, how much you pay, what promotion you have. We are now trying to combine actually coming to your house with a chauffeur, and he's nicely dressed. He's got his Mercedes, nice car. And could you imagine, Darren, if we could start your vacation like that?
That's the way I want to travel.
So in many cases we can do that, but you won't know if you don't give us a holler. And we have many more things to offer as well. So I really want to thank you, Darren, for taking the time today. You're always available, always helping me out.
Thanks for joining us. When you're ready to turn these tips into an unforgettable Viking adventure, let's plan your river cruise together. Ted and Shelley.